Another episode of Deckin Around. My name is Tyler.
I'm Steve.
And today we are actually so excited for this episode. We are going to have Kevin Cantrell on to talk to us about not only design, playing cards, but everything about life in general for Kevin. So, if you don't know Kevin Cantrell, he's done some really iconic decks within the playing card community, such as Tom's Town, the Standards from Art of Play, Citizens from Theory 11, Tavern on the Green. I think a lot of decks that even beginning collectors end up with in their kind of collection because they're readily available, they're reasonably priced, and they really are beautiful decks. So we're excited to have Kevin on this week and really pick his brain about what got him into playing cards and everything like that.
Yeah, he's kind of been in the shadows for a long time, and it's pretty cool. When we saw his picture, I was like, dang, that's what he looks like? Like, it's so funny when you see people, their work, and you have no idea what they look like, and then all of a sudden you see what they look like, and they're like, wow, interesting.
We actually got a lot of questions from the audience earlier saying, what was it like stopping being Superman to design playing cards? So there's a lot of equation to Clark Kent there. So
yeah, he's a little GQ, Kevin, that's for sure.
But in the best way possible. And we had a great time talking with him earlier, so we know this is going to be a fun episode. So before we jump into it, guys, let's take a quick word from our sponsor here.
Hummingbird Feathers mimics the shimmer of a hummingbird in motion. Meticulously created with a specialized printing process using multiple holographic foils. Stunning tuck design and sculpted embossing with master letterpress creation. Featuring limited, standard, and gilded 3-deck sets. Pre-order yours today at marvelousdecks.com.
And without further ado, let's bring Kevin on.
Kevin.
What's up, guys?
How you doing tonight, Kevin?
Good. Yeah.
He does look like
Dude, there's definitely a Clark Kent vibe to it. I wouldn't say Christopher Reeve Clark Kent, but like the comic book style Clark Kent, like the original Superman.
That's funny. I was in San Francisco. This is like I think it was when the Man of Steel opened up in theaters, and it was during a conference. Was it the How Print conference?
Okay.
I was out walking in the street. I was wearing this blue shirted black tie. I was wearing my glasses, and this woman stopped, and she's like, "Superman." I'm like, "Hey."
That's so good.
I wear glasses. I kind of have a wave in my hair, so I like to work out. So maybe there's some similarities, but
you just have to get the middle thing.
Yeah, the little
loop.
Yeah. The little loop. Yeah, no, he has that little like Michael Jackson little loop in the middle.
Yeah, that one little swoop that comes down on his wave there. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, there's much worse things to be mistaken for. I think Superman's probably one of the better ones. Most people aspire to that. So.
Right.
As long as somebody doesn't say you look like the Joker, you're good to go.
Yeah, or Dormammu, or I don't know, some dimensional horrifying being. That's great. I'll take it.
Right?
I'll take it.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. So, I have to say, one of the things we always talk about when we first get on, and I think this is a very relevant to the times, is how has this whole kind of pandemic affected you?
That's interesting. I thought it would affect me a lot more. I've definitely traveled to clients less than I have. I've stayed quite busy, surprisingly. So it hasn't affected me a lot, except I guess I was a hermit. Now I'm even more of a hermit because I don't travel. I mean, I live in the mountains. I live in front of a lake, and it's pretty secluded up here, which I like it that way.
Nice.
But mostly I usually travel. I go to New York quite a bit. I have some clients up there, Tavern on the Green, although, some of my clients, like Tavern on the Green was hit really hard at being a restaurant in New York. So some clients that I've done a bit of work for went on hiatus for a while. They just didn't know work. Tavern, Tom's Town got hit a little bit, but they've kind of picked it up again the last 3 months or so. So I think anyway, I've been able to kind of ride it out so far, but we'll see how what happens. With vaccine, maybe that'll help.
Hopefully, hopefully it'll put some ease in people's minds.
Yeah. Hopefully it brings back confidence. It's all about confidence in the market, right?
Yeah.
So that's the lifeblood of any economy is confidence.
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, just being able to get out there. I mean, I think a lot of people are really itching to get out there and, be able to go out to dinner again and not feel trapped in their house. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully this vaccine kind of makes them feel comfortable out there again. I think it's going to be still going to be a different world once we get back out there, though. I would be shocked if everyone just gets rid of masks. I think we're going to see masks for a while still, even post-vaccine. I think people are going to be much more hygiene aware, much more hand washing, things like that.
Which isn't a bad thing necessarily.
No, right.
I spent a couple years in Brazil, I think I talked to you guys about this earlier. I served a mission for my faith in Brazil, and there, you were. I mean, this was almost 20 years ago, but you were very conscious of anything you touched. I mean, you never walked around barefoot anywhere. You always wore flip flops.
Yeah.
You were very conscious of being clean, washing your hands, and so. Yeah, it's not a bad habit to have. You know, the Japanese culture is a very clean culture too, and maybe there's some good things we'll learn from this, and some good habits we'll pick up.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true.
Yeah, never.
I mean, I think the cool thing about it is we kind of have this weird thing in our culture that when we walk up to someone, we shake their hand, right?
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, it's kind of weird, huh?
It's really, really weird. And you know, I'm all about being personable and touching. Like, I don't mind touching at all. Like, I'm all about hugs and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, it's like I'd rather not shake someone's hand because I don't know where their hands have been, you know. And it's just weird. So I'm kind of glad that we don't have to do that anymore. You know, it's more of like a fist bump. That's not rude anymore because it's okay to do that. It's like you can just give eyes, you can give elbows, whatever you got to do, and you don't really have to touch anybody anymore, which is kind of cool.
You know, I accidentally shook someone's hand like back in like May or April, like right when it was kind of starting, and I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Like I just shook, like it was a really awkward moment with the guy because I was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. Like I was just trying to be cordial with him, and yeah. So now it's just like, you know, I did it again like a month ago. I saw someone I hadn't seen in months, and I shook his hand. He's like, "Are we still doing it?" I'm like, "Oh shoot, man, I'm sorry." Like,
it's so true.
I probably just gave you some disease. You'll probably be dead tomorrow.
Oh, man.
Yeah, right.
I was gonna say the whole elbow bump thing for me though is almost worse than a handshake because like I feel like I feel like with an elbow bump though you get so much closer in someone's personal space than like touching hands. Like yeah, you're not touching hands, but like I don't know, I'm short. My arms are short. Steve will tell you that. Like for me to elbow bump someone, I'm like a foot away from them. Like,
but the cool thing about elbow bumps is like you're turning your body away. You know, you're not like this. You know what I mean? So when you put up, you're kind of doing that.
I don't know. Why don't we just bow? A little head tilt.
Exactly.
You know, I don't know. You know,
you could do one of the.
You're right.
We'll figure it out. I think we'll figure it out after all this. We've had a good motivation for it. But so
or you could just do what they do in Hawaii. Mahalo, man.
So has that transition though for you have you always worked from home, or is this kind of a new thing for you to work from home? Or
I've been working at home for about 6 years.
Okay.
We moved. We actually built a home we finished it about 2 years ago next month, which is nice. Love my home, love where I'm at. I've worked at home for a while. I was in an agency in Salt Lake before I went out on my own. And so I actually worked at a studio in Salt Lake for about 6 years. So I've been freelancing ever since I graduated, 12, 13 years ago. So I'm not, it's very familiar to be working at home. So it's just more full time now.
That's the cool thing about design is they can definitely be anywhere they want in the world, and especially when you're working with a client. Normally when you're a designer, you just have meetings, you meet up with them, you show them your work, and I mean, now you can just, most of the time it's just online. You just send them portfolios online with a password that they can see whatever they want, and that's kind of the cool thing about even photographers,
Yeah, there's definitely an advantage in our industries because of so much of it's digital now. And thank goodness, I mean, imagine if there was a pandemic 20 years ago. Imagine how much harder it would have been to have operated with the internet's so nascent in its lifespan. Now we have. I mean, now I'm still up on. I'm in the mountains, so I'm on dial-up. I'm on my hotspot now. We talked about this earlier. So when on my hotspot, I can get pretty fast upload times. But luckily in design, my files aren't ever too large. It depends on what I'm working on. Yeah. But we have access internationally just like that. So that's really helped a lot. Now, obviously, there are industries where that doesn't work, and they've obviously been. I guess you could say they've had much bigger struggles in this pandemic, but is what it is.
Yeah, I think on the average, though, they're saying productivity across pretty much a lot of sectors that they didn't expect to do so well with remote working. Productivity is up in a lot of those. I know in like banking and finance, shockingly, productivity is up far. And that's one of those areas that they always were kind of expecting that working from home all the time. Like being in finance, at least on my side, like working from home was a big deal. Like they didn't want to get people too comfortable with that, and now they were kind of forced to. And we still get the message being like, oh yeah, eventually you're going to have to go back to the office. But we've seen actual improvements in productivity because of it, because people feel like they have a lot more time. And because you don't have that commute time, people are like, oh, I have to be at work at 8. Well, I'm already up at 7 o'clock. I got nothing else to do. I might as well log on a little bit early. So like there's been interesting kind of increases in productivity there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also I think in terms of happiness, there was a study I read once where it said like to work at home as opposed to an office. I think working in an office or traveling away from your home, you have to make like an extra $10,000 to $15,000 a year to compensate for how much happiness working at home brings you. And granted, it depends obviously on your home condition and your working condition at home, but there definitely is a payoff or a return for working at home, the convenience of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You definitely get more sleep and less stress from the road, right?
Yeah, I guess I mean I don't get much sleep anyway right now because of my kids, but like. Anyway, yeah, more than I probably would if I was working at a studio. Yeah.
I mean, you wake up 10 minutes before you have to be at work, and then you don't have to worry about driving. You're literally home at 5:01 if you're work till 5. And let's be honest, a lot of people, depending on what they do, they're not really working as much as they would if they were in the office. So I think they're just dealing with less stress. Work-wise. And I think that just helps with morale, which if it was the opposite, if it didn't help with morale, I think a lot more people would be having mental health issues. Not that people aren't anyway, but I think
it depends on the study. There are lots of studies showing that mental health conditions have been exacerbated because of and I'm sure there are many conditions, obviously sickness and the pandemic, the stress of it. But,
no, for sure.
Yeah, but it depends, and that depends also on the home condition. Some conditions are better than others, but some conditions, if you have a lot of kids, it can be pretty hard to work at home. It just depends on what your support system is and your relationship status. So, yeah, it really depends.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's it's something that Tyler and I touch up on quite often on the show. When we talk about mental health and especially how it's been affecting people in the community, whether they're magicians or designers or artists, for that matter. But I think staying home with anybody 24 hours a day is difficult, whether you love them but beyond anything or not. I think it's hard enough for us to deal with ourselves for 24 hours. Then when we have our loved ones, our kids, and sometimes, not sometimes, but for me, I get a lot of kind of de-stressing when I do hang out with friends, when I do kind of communicate with other people other than living in this box. You know what I mean? It's just definitely crazy times, man.
Yeah. It's been something interesting. And I'm sure, obviously, like you said, being a little bit of a hermit and living out in the mountains, I'm sure the impact around you was probably significantly less than in some of the major metropolitan areas. But still, the impact, even from a secondary point of view, must have been interesting.
Oh, I mean, for sure. Like our family, like I told you before, my wife comes from a big family. I come from a big family. We definitely have seen our families much less frequently because of this, which is unfortunate for everybody. But so definitely a bit of social lives. Although I am pretty introverted, I like to kind of keep to my own. Like that has changed a little bit. As I said, like I haven't gone to visit clients as often.
Yeah.
Which is, I actually like going to New York. I don't want to live. I've lived in New York before. I don't want to ever live there again. Period. But I do like visiting New York. It's a cool city.
Yeah.
So I kind of miss that. I miss visiting other areas too. But at the end of the day, at least it's not the Black Plague and half the world's population is dead. That's it. That's good.
Yeah. That's for sure.
and we turned around a vaccine pretty quick. I mean, I think would have liked it quicker. Yeah, but I think it's an impressive turnaround. No matter how much people were like, "Oh, we should have this done quicker." Like, this is an impressively fast vaccine for sure. And
hands down.
Especially if it's as successful as they're hoping. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I think that's still kind of the verdict's out on that. Hopefully, it is very successful and helps us get back to a semblance of normality. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, 2021, I think, is going to be an interesting year as well. I think a lot of people are looking forward to 2020 being over, but 2021, at least in the beginning, is still going to be a little tentative as to whether it's an upward trending year or a downtrending year. So we'll see.
Yeah. Hopefully, I mean, I can't imagine things being quite as crazy as 2020 was, but you never know. Like we'll find out. Like
hopefully not. But so how have you found that that's impacted your business side of things in getting new clients? Have you found that? I mean, I feel like being a very big presence already and having built a name for yourself, probably people who know your work and the brands you've worked for are looking for you more so than you hitting the ground looking for new clients. But have you found it has impacted how many new clients you're getting?
It's hard to say. I'd say I usually have hot periods where I get a lot of inquiries and then periods when I don't. Like outside of the pandemic, that's pretty normal. I probably overall haven't received as many inquiries in the last 6 months as I usually do.
Okay.
But I've had a lot of jobs that are bigger jobs that have just been going on for a while. But even those clients are a bit. They all have a bit of hesitancy and concern in the markets. For one's a hotel, they're obviously very concerned in that industry. They're just opening now, and they're in New Jersey, which I mentioned to you earlier, really close to you.
Yeah.
I was hoping to go out there, and they just opened up a restaurant that I branded too, and I'm like, and I mean, the food looks amazing, so I wouldn't mind, getting there and getting some of the benefits of working on a restaurant project, but it's hard to say still. I'd say overall, I've kept very busy. Maybe there've been some opportunities that I would not have seen. I don't know.
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of take on it, because I think again, like, with the internet being, I don't even want to say it's in a mature state, because I don't think the internet's anywhere near what it's actually going to be when it's finally considered mature, but being in a much more mature state than it was even 10, 15 years ago, I'd imagine that a lot of visibility for your company and for your studio and the branding work that you do is from all over the world now because of that ability to find it no matter where you live.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's see. I've worked on 5 or 6 hotels now. A couple of them are in Spain. One of them is in Argentina. I've worked on the Fetch and Park wedding and events location in London. Most of them, I think this year was the first year I actually got some clients in Utah. I don't like work with anybody in Utah, which is really bizarre. But yeah, so that was nice. It's like, hey, I'm in Utah.
Yeah, a little bit local.
Yeah, and so I will say one thing that I haven't done a lot this year, just because of just utter exhaustion, is I've really distanced myself from social media, just because it's just really burned me out. Like, it's just so exhausting to maintain. I mean, I do everything. I do my own posts. I do my own portfolio copying, my own website. I mean, I do all design. I don't really have a lot of designers that I work with. I have some that I work with occasionally as a complementary skill set or extra pair of hands, but I really like doing everything. Because I like being able to inform every part of the process that I work on, from designing the display typeface, from doing the print production, from managing the advertising campaign, to photography, to web design. I really like being able to have my hand in everything, but I'm getting to the point where I just don't have time to do everything anymore. And so I'm trying to figure out what kind of the next stage of my studio's growth is, and how to manage that, which has been card decks. Like, card decks are so time consuming. Like, I told you I had this love-hate relationship with card decks. So I'm like, why am I doing?
We all do.
why am I doing this? It's just painful. The return of investment is lukewarm at best. Like, now, obviously, there are pieces I'm really proud of. Like, I'm super proud of the decks I've worked on.
Right.
But it's just, I like, for example, like I told you before, my primary skill set and my primary work is branding. I do a lot of branding. That's where I feel like my primary competency is in branding. And so card decks are kind of just like a fun thing I do on the side. I picked up lettering just because I didn't really get much satisfaction on my job when studio I was at. So I'm like, well, I'll try and do something to get satisfaction. And so I picked up lettering and type, which I kind of had a natural ability with, and then I applied that in branding in a really elaborate, kind of crazy way. And then that's how I worked on the Fetch and Park in the UK. And then I had some opportunities for the hotels through a contact I had in Spain. And then in Argentina, they saw some of the work I did there. And then the new hotel in New Jersey, they saw our work. And so we picked that up. So it's really been an interesting kind of connection. I once heard, I was not to compare myself at all to an actor anywhere in the industry, but there was an actor who someone asked them once, like, why don't you work on this project? Or And he was like, you can only work on the projects that you are offered. You can't, you can't. It's not like you can do like an Oscar-worthy performance in any movie you want.
Right.
You can only do the best with what you have. And I really thought about that throughout my career. Is how do you maximize your opportunities? How do you take what you have and get visibility from it, or produce the best work that you can?
Yeah.
And that's what I've tried to do. Is I've just tried to maximize opportunities to obtain more. I felt like in my previous agency, I just didn't have enough opportunity to showcase what I was capable of, and so that's why I started.
Yeah, you're so limited.
Yeah, and actually, Eric Marinovich, who's a peer and immense lettering talent and friend, someone who I admire, and actually someone who inspired me to get into design. I remember talking to him because he did this amazing Sprite campaign, and I always assumed that they just went to him, and some people do go to him because he's such a phenomenal type designer, lettering artist. But he actually did this interesting kind of, because he has a big passion for rap and for music, and so he did this passion project that incorporated lyrics into lettering, and then he applied it to some stuff, and then Sprite content. He's like, "Hey, this is awesome." Then he got that job. And I think it's very common, and it's very common in lettering is people like, and that actually happened to me too. Is I did some side projects, a couple posters, and then like I got contacted by like Entertainment Weekly, or what was the other magazine who contacted me? Hollywood Reporter,
Nice.
or what was Wired magazine. They would contact me based on some of those side projects I did, and then I would actually get commissioned from that. I haven't done a lot of experimental work in the last couple of years just because I haven't had time, and because I've been so focused on branding and a couple of standards or new decks I've been working on. And so I haven't done a lot of that, but it definitely does when you create opportunities and you create ones that, again, it's a bit of a risk because people may or may not come to you, but it can open the doors for opportunities that then create a way for you to showcase what you can do.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't remember what the name of it is. I'll have to find out and let you know, but there's a website that deals with only like these big brand companies that they put out basically what they're looking for. They're looking for an ad. You can submit your ad with, let's say Nike. It does, whoever the brand is, throughout, through a specific job. And they'll offer it to so many people. And you basically have to compete in this design process. Obviously it takes up a lot of time, but you're getting eyes on your work by some of the biggest brands in the business. My friend Ben, who is a photographer and videographer out of LA, he did a commercial for Dove, and basically, I think it was Dove. So basically what it did is he shot a commercial, with about hand soap. Like they needed a hand soap commercial. So however many people sent in these videos of, the hand soap commercial, and he won. So he got the gig, so it was like they get all these ideas, and I'm sure they're getting all these ideas, which they can use in the future. If they want something, they can always use a different, videographer or whatever it is, the campaign that they're working. But there are definitely sites out there that they have these big brands looking for work, but obviously it's a lot of work for the chance,
Yes, exactly. And that's like, and I have like, for example, big agencies will pitch to be awarded clients, whether it's an IBM or it's a Mercedes. Like usually agencies will pitch, and so you do actual work, requests for work. You actually create a campaign, and usually you want 1 out of 5 or 6 of those to land. Otherwise, it's just not really feasible monetarily to be able to fund all these designers working on these campaigns that don't bring in any revenue. But it's definitely a very hard business model, because if you do, like your friend, like I don't know how many people submitted to the same thing, but how many, if it's 20 people, 30 people, think about all the work that they get for free. There's definitely some ethical things there that are concerning.
Of course.
I think we've all been there to a certain degree. Where it's challenging. It's like design competitions, it's like, hey, win $500 for designing the logo. And like, I remember I was a student once, and there was someone posted a competition. And so a designer put a note underneath it saying approximately $2 an hour or something like that. and I didn't really think like that. That's, $500 for a logo equates to, X amount of hours. So you get this much money from that. And then it's a chance to get that much money. So it can be a very thin line between exploiting and actually paying and compensating people for the work that they do.
Yeah.
It's tricky balance.
Especially now with social media, right? When you're a creative and you're designing something, you're taking photos, you're doing video or whatever, it's very hard to get compensated for that stuff nowadays because there's so many people creating photos and videos. Everyone thinks they're a photographer. Everyone thinks they're a videographer now. But and a lot of people will work for free, and obviously, let's take the music industry, for instance. A lot of people, obviously, content is the most important thing, clearly. Everything is based off content right now, so I pitched back when I was shooting for musicians. I did a lot of, that's how I got into photography. I was doing like on tour photography for musicians. So I pitched Shakira's management. I wanted to go on tour with Shakira. So I pitched Shakira's management, went through all this stuff, right? All my portfolio and everything. She was doing this big tour, and then they obviously passed on me, and I was like, all right, cool. And then I saw the images that came out of that tour, and they were literally, they probably paid someone like nothing, and the photos were terrible, and I'm like, this is Shakira, like these photos should be epic, and it's just, I think it's because there's so many people with cameras that are willing to do the job so inexpensively that nobody wants to pay a photographer just hanging around taking pictures the whole time. You know what I mean? And I think it just it's kind of a little different scenario, but it's kind of the same idea. Whereas these branding houses are getting so many people to send their stuff in, which is kind of ideas, right? And they can use them at any time after that point. So it's definitely a way to use somebody and take advantage of them,
Well, absolutely. And they do. I mean, I won't mention specifically agencies, but there are some agencies who will request work from designers, and then they will use that work and not give the designer credit. And I understand to a certain degree why agencies do that, because if an agency reveals to the client who is actually doing the work, the client could just bypass the agency,
right? Pitch it themselves.
And the agency took the risk. They got the work. They are the ones who took the risk to get it. But at the same time, there's definitely some shades there that are problematic. When, like, one thing, for example, Brian Collins Studio, I have a ton of respect for them, because they recently, on one of their Instagram posts, they do phenomenal work. I think they're one of the best branding houses in the world right now. They do really excellent work. But on a recent post, they shared every single member of the team who worked on it, and that was just amazing. It's so rare for agencies to do that, to give the credit to the design team and to mention every single one of them, to have all their Instagram handles. Like, I was really blown away by that. I thought that was a fantastic, and that hopefully that's a new precedent that they can establish. An agency doing such great work as them, not being afraid to say, hey, we should give credit to these designers who are doing this great work for us. Like, that's really amazing. But like we talked about this earlier too, we now have because of the internet, for good and for bad, we now have an amalgamated international pool of talent. And so you have people who can be in a different economy who could, for example, $100 in that economy could pay for a substantial more amount of goods than it can in America. And so they can underbid you and some people can do really good work still in a lot of these other areas. They do very competent work. And so it goes to Dave Ricardo's comparative advantage theory, where you have to find out what you have an advantage of economically, and you have to work in that field, because that's how you can perform economically to compete internationally. So it's definitely a tricky balance to have.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, especially nowadays, I think everything that's going on, so many more people are doing this home stuff, whether it's designing, whether it's photography, whether it's, video recording and live streams and podcasts and makeup shows and like just unboxings. And like, there's so many people that are just flooding into these home jobs, that it's just more competition,
Yeah, but it's also fantastic that people can have
for sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that people can get online, they can make a YouTube channel, and they can just start
Yeah.
posting videos of, I mean, from video games, people posting video games, making a living just playing
So
games.
crazy.
Like,
Yeah.
to people who, more philosophical stuff, who read books and comment on it, people who become political commentators or anything. I mean, or design, like there's so many, and again, like when you create a market for something and you create an opportunity, it's amazing what people can do. And
Yeah.
and like I once had, because sometimes I'll get people who send me their work, and they either want to work with me or they just want advice, whether it's a student or whatever. And there was this one student who would send me their work, and it was over the space of 1 or 2 years, and they had amazing work ethic, but they got worse over 2 years. I'm like, look, you have amazing work ethic, you're driven. Why don't you apply that work ethic to something where you might yield better results? Because design's not for everyone.
Yeah,
I do
right.
believe that if somebody puts in the work ethic, they can become a competent designer. But I don't think everybody can. Like I can't be. I'm not particularly good with math. And there are many things I'm not very good at. Like if I would have put there's a book, I can't remember the book of it, but it's like this multiplying where it's basically like you get a 5 for skill and you get a 5 for work ethic. It's like Rudy. Rudy's like a 1 for skill in football, but he's a 5 for work ethic. But maybe he's a 2. Maybe he's a 2. So if you multiply it, the most he can ever be is a 10 out of 25. Tom Brady is a 5 and he's a 5. So he's a 25 if he multiplies work ethic and his talent. Or maybe he's a 4 talent, Tom Brady, compared to like an Aaron Rodgers, who just has a phenomenal gift with throwing, right, and accuracy, who probably is more like anyway. But Tom Brady just has this edge where he's ice in his veins. He just wins, right? But it's like, so you got to find where you can be a 5 at, and if you have amazing work ethic, that's the last ingredient that nobody can compensate for is work ethic, and you just got to find what you're good at and then work at it.
Yeah, and that's where we were like talking about earlier is collaborating, right? Is working with other people, reaching out and communicating and talking with each other and figuring out things that Tyler's great at, I'm terrible at, and vice versa. And I think we know where we're good and we know where we're bad, and I think that is what allows us to grow. Regardless of what we're doing, right? And I think even in any business, when you're a talent house or you're a design studio or whatever, there's some people that are good at type fonts, and there's some people that are better at illustrations. There's some, they have these different expertise, I guess you can say, the skills, and I think if you know what you're good at and you try not, I mean, I'm all for trying to live beyond what your skill is and learn more and be better at stuff, because you can learn more, obviously. But I think knowing what you're good at is definitely a big thing, and being okay with passing something off that you're not good at,
Right. And all agencies, all partnerships rely on having complementary skill sets. Like, I'll be completely frank. Like I don't play very well with other designers. I have very few designers that I will work with for specific reasons, but I'll get people on Behance who message me like, hey, I'd love a chance to work with you. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to be rude. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not I only work with people who complement my skill set. I'm not going to work or who provide a different, for example, I did the Nike bet with Carlos Pagan, who is a phenomenal talent, phenomenal lettering artist, really cool guy too. And anyway, it was perfect timing. But he's also a lettering artist. Like, well, why would you, a lettering artist, work with another lettering artist? Well, they're very, very, lettering is such a vast field to swim in.
Right.
There's so many different looks. I wanted to work. I've sometimes been criticized of this. I'm very much a revivalist, and he has a much more modern take on stuff. So I'm like, well, what if we combined us? What could we make? And also, I was really busy at the time, and I almost turned down that project. I'm like, Carlos, you got to help me out, man. Anyway, so then we just tag teamed it, and it worked out really fantastic. He kind of had his modernity with my classic sensibilities, and we created something really interesting and fresh with that. Sometimes I'll work with somebody who is more specialized in photography art direction. Now, I have art directed many photo shoots, but I just don't have a lot of time anymore. And so if I can be more of an overseer, and I've worked as an art director, so I know how to manage talent. I just don't enjoy it because I like being in the trenches. I enjoy the process of design. I like being hands-on with stuff. But if I have somebody who can complement my skill sets in art direction, in photography, or if somebody, I don't know, it just depends. Like if somebody who's really specialized in the skill set that I need for a project I'm on, I'll work with them. But I don't want to I don't want to babysit. I don't want to work with somebody who's okay, or just like I want to work with the best of the best, and that might be elitist, but because I'm only interested in producing the best of the best results. And so I try to work with people who are extremely specialized and skillful in an area that I'm not, and that complements me and enhances my abilities. And together, the synergy of that is something greater than the individual pieces. And so I'm interested in that.
Yeah, and I think Tyler and I have talked about it, when we had Alex Pandrea on, and it's like, what it comes down to is it's great to help other people, right? But when we're busy and we're driven and we have our vision and goals in mind and set, that we don't really want to deter ourselves from that drive, So I think what it comes down to is, and Tyler says this, and he's big on it, is if you want to approach someone and you want to collaborate, and you're inspired by someone, you think you'd be great collaboration effort with that person, make sure you go to that person with an idea.
Yeah.
Make sure when you are connecting with them, you might have one chance to talk to them. And if you're going to talk to them, make sure that you have your idea ready, sell your idea, and make it so that person is like, dang, that's a great idea. I want to work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because the latest card deck I'm working on is with the gentleman Wake, and I almost, after standard, I almost was like, I'm done. I'm never doing a card deck again. I'm done. It's like the book The Agony and the Ecstasy. It's like, I've already done 4 or 5 decks. One of them hasn't been released yet. I'm hoping to wrap it up for that hotel I told you about. But it's such a, and again, I'm at a different phase in life than I was 6 years ago. When I was 6 years ago, I only had 2 or 3 kids. I have 5 now. I had different expenses I had to cover, daily. I had a different nugget I had to get for the winter harvest to survive. So I'm just in a different phase in life, and I can't work the same hours that I worked then, nor can I take the risks in terms of working on an experimental project like I did back then. I have other stewardships that I must manage. I have my children I have to take care of. I'm totally willing. Like if somebody sends me their work and they want to give me my opinion, I'm totally willing to help. To look at their work. I'm like, hey, I think you could be really successful in this, or this is a strength. This is someplace where I think your work needs, or your book of work needs greater attention to detail, or whatever. I'm totally willing to help people out. It's just there are just certain things that I'm just not willing to do anymore, or I just can't, just because of time limitations and other responsibilities that I have.
Dude, highlight what Jackson just wrote.
Oh, okay, here. There you go. No, you can't be done. I haven't been able to convince you to do a King's Wild deck yet.
Oh, hey man. Well, how about this? How about you design a card deck by yourself, spend about 200 to 300 hours on it, and then tell me if you want to design a card deck again.
So Jackson,
dude, that's what he does.
Yeah, he designs all his decks, but he's.
You have a major love. You have a major love for that, then. And again, it's like a love-hate thing, because when I finish a project, and part of it too is the circumstances. Like, for example, right now I'm working on 2 big branding projects, and so the card deck is something I work on in my spare time when I can fit it in the cracks, and so I'm already overbooked. Because then the card decks are usually delayed sources of income. They usually don't return as much as the time I invest in them. And some people, like for example, JP Fletcher, I have great designer. He did the Union deck. He did. He's done. He did the Rabbit deck, the rare. I think it's the Rare Bit. He's done a few decks.
Oh, Rare Bit, yeah.
Style, like that dude, like he cranks out stuff so fast. I'm just like, dude. How about you put your speed into my body, and I'll see if I can pump out what I'm doing as fast as anyway.
Dude, Jackson is hands down. Jackson's hands down the fastest designer in the business, hands down.
Gee, so you gotta teach me the ropes, man. How do you?
Dude, you guys should collab. You guys will bang out 2 decks in a month.
No.
He literally, he is. Nobody pumps out decks like that guy.
You'll have to teach me how you do it so fast, man. I'm pretty, and it's funny because I'm really fast in design. It's just like, I think, and it depends on the deck. Like, for example, the Tomstown deck, I did in like 2 or 3 weeks. That one was actually pretty fast. But part of it is because I already had an existing brand I created. Yeah. And also the illustration style, went much faster. But like standards, like any Victorian is a really, really complex time. Like, and the new deck I'm working on, the successor deck, with the Gentleman Wake is very much in that same vein. It's Victorian. It's very ornate. It's really over the top. I mean, I showed you. I walked you guys through it. I'm probably 80 to 90% complete with it. Now I'm going to be in the production phase soon, and it's just, and this one, man, this one's really over the top. Inspired by 14th, 15th century tombs, and again the War of the Roses. People, kings knocking off other kings, trying to assassinate each other to claim the thrones. Anyways, but I think it's pretty cool theme.
Yeah.
But it just depends. Like Tavern on the Green, for example, that one actually went pretty, because the court cards aren't nearly as complex. It's more of an Art Nouveau deco. Deco is a much faster style to work in. The tuck case took a little while to figure out. Like the tuck case took a bit of time on Tavern on the Green. I mean, it's really over the top. But it just depends. Some decks go faster than others. Sometimes, like it was my first deck, and I never worked in anything that intricate, that small, and so it took me a little bit of time to figure that out on Citizens. And so once I got kind of the hang of that, and I figured out how to work really small, intricate details for foil stamping, that actually was a really good learning experience for me, and it enabled me to do standards and obviously the other decks.
Dude, you have some of the best tuck boxes. You have some amazing tuck boxes under your belt, and it's really cool. From Tavern to Standards are two of my favorite tuck boxes by far.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
You touched on one of I think the secrets of quick design for decks too earlier today when we were talking, and I think Jackson could probably fill you in on a lot more. But I think designers who put out decks quickly and put out a lot of decks have that standard court set that they use. It's a custom. Built it. Once you put the upfront time in, being able to reuse and tweak something that's already kind of where you want it probably expedites the process significantly.
Yeah, and actually, I think I mentioned that to you, is that the core cards I've created for successors, they're much more classic. The standards court cards were a bit unorthodox. The ones I'm doing for successor are much more traditional, with my own ornate sensibilities and stuff. But I'm going to be, obviously I'll tweak them for any decks I do in the future, but I will be using those court cards again for other decks.
That'll save you a ton of time.
That will facilitate. But I mean, even the tuck cases, like the Tavern on the Green tuck case is so intricate. Like even just building out the embossing layer on it. I mean, I showed you the embossing layers for standards for that, and just building out the embossing layer, it's really time consuming.
So now, is that something that normally the designer does, or can the print house do it? Or if I was to send it, because I don't know. I mean, I would think they would have a better idea of what would look better embossed or and that stuff. But is that something generally that the designer? I mean, the way you do it is pretty intense. It's pretty epic.
It depends. I don't like leaving anything to chance or for someone's interpretation. I like to control what I can control, and maybe that stems from a lack of trust that I have. But I only know that I can predict results that I control, and I know how to control results in this medium because I'm very familiar with it, and so I like to be able to dictate everything from the production of embossing to foil stamping. And obviously, there's some room for serendipity, but I like to be able to control that. So, yeah. And now, for example, on the standards deck, the lion, the vendor did do the build out in the CAD file for the 3-dimensional sculpting of the lion. Now, I provided them obviously the breakout of the lion in the background, but then we went back and forth a little bit, and they did that. And so, yes, like some vendors can do that, and hey, that saves me time down the road. I'm happy to work with a vendor that can do that for me if it saves me time and produces.
Now, did Clove Street do standards box?
Yeah, Clove Street did. Yeah. Those guys do amazing work. Yeah.
Yeah, and they also have Dan there as well. Looking over their shoulder if there's something specific that he thinks would look better. I'm sure he has.
Oh yeah, I love working with Dan. I was hoping we would be using them for the successor deck, and that we may or may not be, though. It's still up in the air who we'll be using for the production.
Yeah.
I think my successor deck is probably more intricate than standards.
Yeah.
So we're going to need a really, really competent vendor to pull that off, and so I trust Dan immensely. So.
I think Omar was talking about Cottonwood for sure.
Studio on Fire, they did Citizens, they did Tavern. They're phenomenal as well. I think they have exclusivity with Theory 11, so I don't think they'd be able to do that with me.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So, it's interesting because we were talking about this earlier, and I think it's come up a couple times with the idea of, obviously your primary business being branding. I kind of have a twofold question here with the idea of what first kind of got you into the playing card design aspect of things, but also it seems that you incorporate a lot of playing cards now with your branding campaigns. Is that something that you kind of suggest to a lot of your clients when you go through it, if it seems applicable, or is it something more so that you're finding your clients are asking you for because you've done it with other campaigns?
No, I go to a client, I'm like, hey, actually, I think I talked to you about this. That really one of my big dreams is that fantasy book series I've been working on for like 15, 20 years. I have this big idea that a big idea, and I want to be able to execute. I just haven't had the time, or maybe even the maturity earlier. I think I have the maturity level to do it justice now, or an experience where I don't think I quite had that before. But so my goal is to be able to create a business structure or architecture where I have some passive income. Can dedicate time to that fantasy series and really do it because I want to brand it, I want to illustrate it, I want to do the whole thing. And so my goal was, okay, what avenues do I have? Because I create all these $1 million brands. Can I create my own successful brand? Maybe. And so I actually was starting to create this product line. It's called Cantrell A Priori, but I just wasn't able to finish it because I like my book was going to be a part of that. That's been on hold for just because I've been so busy. But for some reason the card decks have worked out. Like I don't know why I finished these card decks, not my book. Like. Maybe it's because I know more how to finish a card deck, whereas I still don't know quite how to. It's quantifiable. My book isn't quantifiable to finish it. I don't know how much time it will take.
Yeah,
I know
right.
how much time it takes to do a card deck because I've done it. And so, but what got me in the card decks though? That's a good question. Jonathan Bain from 3011 approached me. I want to say 8 years ago. I was pretty early in my career still, relatively speaking. And what command did he see that he thought was interesting? I've loved card decks since I was younger. I've always had this like obsession with card decks. Bicycle playing cards. I love the core. I just love them. I've always I was in the comics when I was younger. I love comics. I've always loved the Victorian style. But when he approached me, like, oh, that'd be a really fun project, and we just couldn't. And early on, it didn't really work out. But then, a couple years later, after that. We were actually going to, the Citizens deck was originally going to be for David Copperfield. And we talked about this earlier. And we couldn't get David Copperfield to agree on any of the creative. And so we renamed the Citizens deck. And then he's like, oh,
Sucks
man.
to be him.
And then he's like, man, you created this beautiful deck. I didn't know it was going to be this beautiful. Let's do another one. And I'm like, okay, great. Maybe he's learned his lesson. And then we did a deck and it's never probably going to get produced. And so I did. Yeah. So then there's this other deck we did, the Copperfield deck, and it's not even like it's in limbo, and I probably won't ever finish it. So
yeah.
But I did the Citizens deck, and I always kind of felt like the Citizens deck was an incomplete project because I only did the Ace, the Joker, and the Tuck case. I didn't do the court cards, and I actually asked Jonathan if he'd let me do the court cards, like for like royalty or something, but yeah, that didn't work out. Because again, it's profitable to him. He doesn't need to spend any more money on it. Why do that? I get that from his point.
What about a version 2?
Like the Citizens deck is just incomplete to me because I didn't get to influence every component of the deck.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about a version 2?
Sorry.
What about a version 2?
Version 2. Well, I asked Jonathan about that, and no go, man.
But
so then what was the first custom deck I did? It may have been the Tavern deck, actually. No, was Tavern the first? So what did I release after Citizens? Maybe it was the Tavern. It was the Tavern deck. It was the Tomstown deck, then Standards. And then I have that Hotel deck, Vila Bellino, that's going to be coming out next year. And I have the Successor deck. And then I have obviously the next couple of versions of Standards coming out. But that's more color variations, not really too much more design on that.
Yeah.
And so I think
that's
Tavern
exciting.
was the first. I think I was working on the Standard deck simultaneously with Tomstown.
Okay.
I started doing court cards and figuring that out, and then, but again, it is much more. And court cards don't really sell decks. It's more the Tuck case that sells them.
Yeah.
And
right.
So for 3011, he's like, well, it's not really profitable to do the court cards because the Tuck case is what sells it. So from a business standpoint, I totally get why he wouldn't be interested in investing in something that doesn't really give him a good ROI. So.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that, they've obviously figured it out. 3011 has got it locked down for sure. you put it all in the tuck, make obviously the deck nice inside, but you can spare some expense on the deck,
Right. Their price points for the quality of product you get is just unmatchable. It's unparalleled.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Jonathan's a cool guy. Like, I really like Jonathan. He really figured out, and everybody else has kind of tried to imitate his model to a certain degree. Even Art of Play, right? And Art of Play I think are one of the people who I think can not on every deck, but they've been able to produce decks on the same level as 311. Which again is very complementary to Art of Play and what they do. And those guys have a bit of a different model too. They're not purely a luxury product. They're about fun. They're about play, and they do some luxury items. So they can do luxury, but they can also do more playful stuff. Whereas 311 is pure like opulence, luxury. That's why they and I guess I wouldn't consider Star Wars luxury, but they turn it into a luxury item. Or James Bond deck fits that very well because James Bond you associate with luxury and decadence, and it fits very well with that. So yeah,
it's interesting because I think Tyler and I we had a little trip down to Art of Play like a month ago or so, a month or two, I think a month.
That's October.
And dang, 2 months already, Jesus. So and it looks like they're really getting into some luxury items, and even their decks are starting to climb up to $18, $25, and I think that's the direction.
Yeah, no, they offer, and Dan and Dave are like two of the coolest guys to work with, by the way. Like
they're fun guys. We just chatted with them.
Awesome to work with and great champions of creative. So anyway, I've really enjoyed working with them, and the hotel deck I'm working on for Vila Baluna will be released with Art of Play, which I'm very excited about. Yeah, they really offer. They do a great job of offering a good range of super luxury, and some of even the other non-play play card stuff that they do. Pretty cool stuff. Like
I mean that's what I'm saying. Like all their new stuff, like they're having like just crazy stuff coming out. That's super cool. But it's definitely in the luxury, high end, pricey stuff.
Yeah, I think they do a great job, though, really staying true to their roots of that playful side of it, though, because again, you can go there and you can find a puzzle for $15. You can find a puzzle for $1,500.
Right.
They've created that expansive kind of aspect, and I think the nice thing about it, though, too, is just because something's luxury doesn't necessarily mean it's not playful.
Yeah. I mean, totally. I mean, heck, the standards deluxe box was what, $300 retail? I mean,
200.
Was it 200? I can't remember how much it sold.
Yeah,
that was not cheap.
It was 200, but dude, damn worth it. That thing is insane. It's like a safe. Like we have actually somebody in the chat that dropped something on top of it, like a heavy. I don't remember what he dropped, but he dropped something literally on top of the standards box. Didn't ding, didn't dent, nothing. It's like literally
nothing's gonna happen.
It's beautiful. I have one.
Might scratch it slightly, but yeah, that box, like it's expensive, like $200. I think the actual production cost on that was like, I want to say $60 to $80. Like it's a very expensive product to produce.
Yeah.
We originally were going to try and mint the lid out of the actual metal. And it is metal, the lid, but it's cut into metal rather than an actual mold, and it's not as thick and quite as deep as we were hoping to get. But to do that, we would have had to have produced like thousands and thousands of them, and then anyway, we wanted it to be more of a premium limited edition thing, so that was more rare and anyway increased the value.
It's so beautiful. If anybody has a chance to get it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah,
definitely one of the best things in my collection for sure.
Okay, that's cool, man. We're actually hoping with Successor to produce a couple, some similar cases of value like that. Because again, it's themed after tombs, ancient king tombs, and so we want to produce some kind of a sarcophagus that has a similar feel to that, with like an old king like holding a sword on top of something. That's one of the ideas that we're floating around, and so we're hoping that we can find the right vendor to produce something like that for us. It'll hold probably 6 decks. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
No,
we look forward to that. That's for sure.
I think that's going to be a fun one. I think, for anyone in the chat too, who's familiar with, Omar's past decks and the designers he's worked with, I think he has a knack for finding a designer who fits really with the ideas he has. And I think, from what we've seen of the successor and the things that you would have discussed with us and the things we've discussed with Omar in the past, it sounds like it's going to be a really phenomenal, like game-changing deck. So I'm excited for it. I know.
I hope so, man. I mean, it's funny. Like, as an artist, you're always worried, like, will your next piece be as good as your last or better? Because you always want to progress and grow as a designer. Like, I mean, I talk to you guys. Like, my interest, I have very little interest in making money or fame. Like, I just want to create a high level of craft and excellence in my work. Like, that's what it's about for me. It's the satisfaction of improving and always producing something better than my last piece, or at a level that I feel is extremely high for my level of expectations of myself. And I really feel like this deck is at that level. We'll see if everybody else feels the same way. Hopefully they do. But it definitely is a unique deck, and I think
People are gonna love it. That's for sure.
A playful twist to it with the traders trying to assassinate the king, and I think that's a pretty cool component of it.
I think it's really going to be a fun deck. And I think, the one thing that's going to be different about it too is I think Omar really likes to bring as much opulence to the outside of the deck as to the inside. He brings that to the inside of it as well. And I think a lot of times, with some of the decks you've designed and we've seen in the past, and it's really more so, I think the art of play in Theory 11 style is very opulent tucks. And not to say that the insides aren't opulent, but they don't really go for foil. They don't necessarily go for things like that. Whereas like this very well could be maybe the first deck with foil and all that fun stuff. So
yeah, we will be doing some versions like that where some of the quartz will be foil stamped, the backs will be foil stamped, the edges could be gilded on some of the more rarer iterations of the deck. So we will be doing stuff like that, which we'll even do a version we talked about where the tuck case has a metal minted plate on it.
Nice.
Which again, when you've seen the artwork with the front of it, which has the coronation component.
Yeah.
That would look extremely cool, minted in metal, and actually tipped into the deck on one of the sides. And so, there's a lot of things we're playing around with. I just need to finish up the artwork, which I'm hoping to in the next couple of weeks here, and then we'll go into kind of the production phase and experiment with some of that.
Nice.
That's exciting. Since we're talking about decks, we should get the deck sniff out of the way.
Yeah, get it out of the way about now. We're in.
I know, right? We should do that before we forget. We can't forget to do our sniff for Stu.
But yeah, so we mentioned briefly earlier about our tradition we have as a kind of nice little thing we do for our friend Stu, who is known in the community for sniffing decks of cards. So if you do have a deck available to you, feel free to take it out, sniff it in any way, shape, or form you'd enjoy. And I think it was because we talked about this earlier about the fact that you included this fresh, nice
standards deck here. It usually the decks smell the best when you get them fresh off the press. That's otherwise the aroma dissipates over time.
Yeah,
can't really smell too much right now. Obviously, you can't smell the inks. I love it when I get like a nice stationery set off the press, especially off of like an offset press, because then you have that fresh smell of ink. Anyway, I really enjoy that. You
get the first sniff right before it gets in the box.
Level sniff right there.
You'll smell the paper on this.
You know what? This makes me feel a lot better though, because now I don't feel so weird about the fact that I like the smell of like a fresh, and I'm sure it's not near the same, but like a fresh like printer paper out of like a laser jet printer or something like. All the everything about it, but I'm sure like a printer, an actual like printing press is a much different smell.
Yeah, it is a bit different. It's been a month since I got something off press, so I don't really have anything particularly fresh. I do have, let's see, I've got this right here. Let's see. So this is a stationery system I did for Profi.
Nice.
Financial group. But so anyway, their stuff is really over the top. Here's a good example. This is one of their business cards.
Oh wow!
Oh, wow.
So but this when it came off the press, you could smell the ink off of it, which just had this aroma, which was really really awesome. But this is a cool because it has a few different colors that we offset pressed onto it.
So good. Dude, your work is so detailed and intricate. It's crazy.
It really is.
This is actually pretty comparable to the detail level of my card decks. I haven't done too many cards quite this intricate. These ones are pretty close to it. That one's not. Top of it's pretty ornate, but yeah, see. So I've got this. Oh, this is. I can. So this is. You can't show me it. So this is actually a hotel I'm working with right now, called the Chateau Grand.
Mm.
And so they have, so these are the business cards for them. So what it is it's a play off of the word chateau and grand. So what we it's about big life moments, and for the most important times, you go to the Chateau Grand Hotel. And so it's the word grand blown up really big and cropped in different compositions, and then gold foil overlaid on that. Cool. Just to play off of the word grand, so kind of a visual fun. But that one, it's a bit more of a contemporary look for me, which is fun. So that's what I've been working on that for a few months. I showed you this. This again, none of this stuff has hit the market yet. So this is a medicinal cannabis brand I've been working on.
So cool.
Right. So this is a tincture. Anyway, this is a prototype. So this is like, for example, this is a gloss finish. The actual bottle is a matte finish, and this is not the right red. It's a little dark. So we went with actually, this is a matte finish. It's just not the right red. It's a little too dark.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
So this is a brand I'm working on. Cute little line there, sitting around. Call him the winged evangelist for the brand.
Nice.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
So that's this is the sunscreen for the brand. So it means really,
dude. That mandala is beautiful.
Yeah, it's sun rays. The idea of circles.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah. So anyway, this will be coming out. This product will be launching in the next week or two.
Nice.
The sunscreen won't come out for a couple months, but the tincture will come out soon.
Being able to see that too really makes you realize how much the visual part of branding just stands out, in the sense of, like, if I was walking down, an aisle at a store and I saw something like that, even if it wasn't something I needed in that moment, it would catch my curiosity, where you'd be like, oh, what is this? Like, because I think a lot of branding these days are very similar, or very not as like detailed or intricate. Like, you're seeing that like very artistic branding just stands out so much more against a lot of things that are very similar, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have. I mean, people aren't familiar with my work, but I've done a lot of more modern, minimal branding. I've done a vast array of looks and feels. The Chateau Grand is a bit more of a modern, like a Vogue Italia theme. I've done some stuff, and it depends on the market you're in. Like, maximalism really in certain markets, for a while things went very much to the international style, very minimal, bold, modern. And there's been a return, and maybe it's becoming more oversaturated with more ornate stuff, but it just comes and goes. What stands out on a shelf, but it's very rare in a franchise market where you'll see something that will stop you on a shelf. More craft stores will have some items like that maybe are more interesting. But then there's so many items in that craft store that are like that. Does it kind of defeat the purpose? Like, it's tricky. It's very tricky to have things stand out on a shelf.
Yeah, I feel like
I mean, that's like in the wine world, right? Like, wine bottles are literally, like, one of the biggest selling wines here are Barefoot. It's literally a foot on a label, and it's huge. It's literally one of the highest selling wines in America, and it's just a foot.
Hey, feet, man. Actually, my brother has this fetish with feet. He would not date a girl unless she had attractive feet, and I'm like, man, like. It's each his own, So he'd like do with a foot inspection, like, let's see your feet. Up, you're out. You're out. You're done. Like, I'm done.
Can you imagine being the fly on the wall and just how that woman feels getting that rejection just because she got some hammer time?
Yeah, the most beautiful woman in the world, but if she has attractive feet, it's over. I mean, it's not like you can't wear socks, or I don't know, like, I mean, feet are. Everybody has their thing, man. Everybody has their thing,
That's for sure, man. That is definitely for sure. Didn't they say, like, when you like date someone, the first thing you look for is their shoes? If they have like terrible shoes, then they don't take care of themselves, and they're not
that's
like.
Funny. I haven't heard that one. That's interesting.
Yeah, you look at their shoes.
Women most.
I'm taking care of my shoes, man. Like, it's a good thing I'm married already. Like, I'd be doomed. Totally doomed. I'm a designer, but I actually don't really like. It's like funny. Like, I think someone commented on when you made the post, because I was wearing like a vest and I was wearing a tie, because I like wearing a vest and tie, like in a suit. But someone's like, hey, get some fashion. I'm like, I never buy clothes. Like I'm not very much of a consumer. I don't buy much of anything. I get my satisfaction out of what I make. Like,
Yeah.
I usually am just wearing, I'm very typical as a designer in that sense. I usually wear black. Like if I ever wear a colored shirt, my wife would be like, oh, you're wearing, well, what's the occasion? You're wearing like a red shirt. Red's my favorite color. But it's like, oh, you're wearing but she got me a green shirt because I don't like green. I don't know why. I just don't like green. So I wore this green shirt and she's like, oh, look how refreshing that is. I'm like, okay, I'll wear a green shirt for you. But I mean, the only place I like green is out in my backyard. You know, I don't want green in our house.
The grass.
Living room's painted green.
That's hilarious. Dude,
nice green, but like, anyway.
I'm all about like hopefully wearing other colors. Like Tyler and I pretty much wear the same colors all the time. Like one day, and we don't even plan it, but one day I'll wear like a light blue shirt and then he'll wear a light blue shirt the same day. That's funny. But I always try to, I have pretty light skin. I'm pretty light skinned. So it's like some of those really cool colors like that lavender color or pink or like this light blue. I just got to the point where I'm like, I want to try some cool colors, so I got this pink sweater and it's
grays and blacks. I love it.
I have the same pair of running shoes. It's probably bad for me. I've used the same pair of running shoes for like 2 years. They've got like holes in them. I don't care. Like they function well enough. So I would wear them out until the soles literally fall off of them. Very practical in that sense. If I don't need a new one, I'll save my money. I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you.
Running shoes are not cheap either. Like,
hey, if I want to produce a $5 business card, you better believe I'm getting myself a $5 business card. Yeah, like hey, here's one of the iterations of it.
Nice.
That is so. I love that.
This is one. I mean, there's like 6 different variations of this. The one
on the right reminds me of like something I'd see in like a Harry Potter movie. Like that red with the
it's the Victorian feel, where some of the Harry Potter type has a bit of a woodcut or Victorian look to it. So you can see that.
I love it.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Did have come in earlier when we had put out the stories, prior to the show was, being a designer of decks. What is your favorite part of a deck to design? Do you have any one part that really resonates with you, whether it be the tuck or the ace of spades or the courts?
Yeah, the tuck case for sure. I enjoy the tuck. I also like doing the ad cards. Actually, that's one of the last things I have to do for the successor. I actually like the tuck case, the ad card, because it's kind of a forgotten card.
Yeah.
And I don't like a disgraceful, horrible looking ad card to accompany my deck. I find it insulting to have an ugly ad card in there diminishing the return of my deck. So I don't like that.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, and I think one of the interesting things about the ad card too is it's almost a free for all. And a deck
totally. I mean,
is defined. Yeah.
So here's the standards. I had more control. Some of the decks I didn't have as much control, but like standards. One of them is actually an ad for my book, which hopefully one of these days I'll finish. The other one's is like a joint ad card for myself and for Art of Play, and then also has the standards name. But those are pretty decent looking cards.
Yeah, those are cool.
They at least fit well into the standards aesthetic. But I'd say Tom's Town. There's a Tom's Town brand card, and then there's a Cantrell Studio brand card. Same with Tavern on the Green. I think has the same thing. Citizens I had less control over, so I don't even. No, did I do? I did do an ad card for Citizens. I think I did do one for Citizens. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't think I think I'm out of Citizen decks. I used to use them as promo pieces and hand them out when I would go to visit different agencies and stuff. But I don't think I have any Citizen decks in my possession at the moment.
I just got to get on that.
Yeah, I don't want those to sell out and they don't reprint them, and I have no Citizens decks anymore. Like, because I still love the Citizens deck tuck case. I thought that was a pretty cool one.
It's
so nice. Yeah, it's great. It's great inside out too.
Oh yeah, the galosh pattern on the interior, the currency pattern is pretty cool. Yeah, it's funny because a friend of mine I worked on the Cotton House Hotel with him. He's like, this looks like like a Cotton House set of playing cards. I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, it very much, because I did it around the same time I was working on the Cotton House Hotel. So it definitely has some components. Like it has the same typeface. Actually, I'm using that typeface a little bit on the successor deck too, because I really love the Cotton House slab typeface.
Nice.
I'm really proud of that typeface, so I use it when I can. And again, I like owning everything. So if I can use my own typefaces in the deck, so I own the type, I own the illustrations. It's just I don't know why, it's just a pet peeve. I like to own the entire craft I'm making.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes sense. Makes total sense.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's not familiar with it, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about the concept behind your book? I know you said a couple times that it's been delayed, and it was the original, kind of a addendum to the standards deck. But like, what was the actual premise behind the book?
So the point of the book is and this is the theme of the gold standards playing cards, is the true gold standards is not bullion, it's not metal, it's not gold. The true gold standard of an economy is what's called the confidence model, because the gold standard came and went and it died and it wasn't successful. It was a failed system.
Yeah.
The only true system for an economy is the confidence model. Economies, they rise and they fall based on the amount of confidence bestowed by the people in the system. And so, and that same principle applies to branding. And so the whole concept behind the gold standard book is it's about the confidence model and branding. And so what I was trying to do with that is showcase my process for design and branding and how to create confidence with your clients. Because again, my best work comes when my client trusts me.
Yeah.
And they trust me that I'm good at what I do, that I know how to build a brand that will be successful for them. And then it has to yield successful results in order to maintain that confidence. And so that's really what it was about. And it was about and also in twofold, also in lettering, I was going to showcase it. Confidence also comes from competency and being able to be methodical in your process, to be able to have consistent results on every project you work on, which I feel like I've been able to obtain a consistent standard of excellence in all the work I do. That, again, like someone asked on Twitter, like, hey, asked this question to designers, what % of your work gets shot down? What % of it goes through? And I think most of them were like 10, 20%. And then even then, of the most agencies, you have an A, a B, and a C team. The A team does all the award-winning work. The B team and the C team pay the bills. And usually it's not the sexiest thing that they do. I like to think that the work I do is always at the A level. I'm only interested in working at A level stuff. And I've been fortunate enough so like 80 to 90% of what I work on, I feel is at a very high level. And so the purpose of the gold standard of branding and lettering was to showcase how to do brand strategy, brand positioning for a small studio, and then how that also create competence and confidence in your skill set in executing lettering and executing logo type and applying what I call a modular system or a living branding component to whatever you're designing. So from a logo type to a monogram to an icon, how to create consistency typographically across from a large to a small scale. So that was really the idea behind the book. And I was co-writing it with my business partner, Eric Atkinson, who's like indispensable to my studio. He's my strategist, my writer, my manager, a great writer too. And so he has a master's in brand strategy. And so we were going to be talking about it's kind of things that most agencies don't like to pass around, is brand positioning and platform and how to do that. And so we wanted to create a system that we could present to smaller boutique studios. Like, hey, here's how you can create brand strategy for a client. And this is a great way to be methodical, because like no two brands I work on are the exact same. Now some of them may have some things that I have biases towards, but I've worked on Chateau, I've worked on the Fitzroy, I've worked on Tomstown, I've worked on obviously now Camberwell. They're all strategically driven brands that aren't driven just by a style. The style can be appropriate for whatever the strategy dictates whatever the aesthetic is. And so that's something I talk about in the book. So I would like to get it out in the next year or two. It just depends on my work schedule and how many decks I'm going to be doing to take away from my
I mean, it definitely sounds like an interesting book in and of itself, especially for, I think at this point too, the visibility you've built yourself in the playing card community, while it sounds like a very specific market you're looking to, sell the book to, again, people in small boutique design firms looking to build out that branding, I wouldn't be surprised if you actually have a bigger audience for the book just because of the work you've done and the kind of support that people like to show in this community for playing cards and the work that, designers do even external to that.
Well, look what Jackson just wrote.
That'd be great. I actually pitched the book to a publishing house about a year ago, and it didn't work out. And then I was able to get it with another publishing house, and they wanted to do it, and I feel kind of bad because I was going to do it, but then I just don't have time. Like I just haven't had the time over the last year. And I think in one way that the pandemic has affected me is it's made me take on more work, as maybe in terms of fear, like that maybe something else won't come around. And so I've just been so busy.
Yeah, makes sense.
That I just haven't had time to put into it. It's funny because I have an outline for it. I have some components written of it. I have some layouts designed. I mean, I already designed the book. I mean, and I think it's a beautiful book. Like I'm really proud of what the book looks like. It's just hopefully I can finish it, because I think it will be a great asset to boutique studios, which I think is the model of the future. I think even agencies like Pentagram have kind of turned to this, where they only have a couple employees, and then they have a lot of freelancers that they work with. They have people so they staff up or staff down depending on their workload, and that's a much easier model to do, because you have less liability. And with how the market fluctuates, I think that is a really good model for the future. So having a more boutique studio where you have to be to a certain degree specialized. If you're going to have a competitive advantage against other studios, there have to be industries that you are an expert in, and this can talk about how to maximize your confidence in that.
Yeah, for sure. Jackson said you want to work with the best. he wants to do a deck with you, man.
Yeah.
Hey,
you guys should definitely do a deck together. I think it'd be really fun. We had a viewer send this over. There's your ad card for Citizen.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. They got that so fast. Yeah.
Oh, Matt is the man. Matt is like, he's the one that so there's a card guard. It's by Crooks and Kings, I think it is. It's that really heavy one that looks like a mask.
Crooks, yeah.
Yeah, and that fell on top of the standards box and didn't dent it at all. That's
didn't do anything.
Matt's a legend.
The card guard from Kings and Crooks looks like the gladiator mask that Russell Crowe wore.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
Legit, like made out of metal. So for that to fall on top of that and walk away unscathed is impressive for sure.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, man.
And so, I feel like we've been a lot on the design topic and, kind of touching a little bit more on, what you think for your book would be good material there. But like when you first got out of school, knowing you were going to do design, was your ultimate goal always to open up your own boutique studio, or is that something you kind of evolved to over time?
No, actually, so funny things. I never wanted to design a typeface. And I didn't want to do lettering. I didn't think I could. I always thought that lettering and type design was for like experts. I didn't know that to be an expert, you have to be a novice at some point. Nor do I consider myself an expert in lettering, let alone type design. I design display typefaces, but I am not a type designer. That's a point I want to stress. I do not consider myself a type designer because I'm not. I dabble in type design as a complementary component to some brands I work with, and as a monetary thing. Probably doesn't really make any money because I could just choose a typeface from someone else. But again, it's that OCD thing where I hate not owning every aspect of a brand I work on. It's like, I don't know why I can't just pick, and I do pick secondary and tertiary fonts from other type foundries that I use, but there's something about designing a display typeface and having that be part of the brand that, like every brand I've done, every big one, most of them I've designed a typeface for, whether I programmed it or not, or developed it. I don't know why I do, because it's not particularly profitable. It's not.
Yeah.
But again, it's something that I enjoy, and but again, I'm getting to a point in life where I probably won't be doing that as often, just because I just don't have. And again, I'd like to focus on finishing the Gold Standard book or my fantasy series that I really, really want to devote more time to, because I follow what I'm passionate about. I follow what I believe in, and I really believe in that series. And so I would like to.
Tyler will stay on top of you for that.
Definitely, I will be harassing you forever after we had that discussion. I'm excited about this book series.
I think that will be. I think that will be my magnum opus. Is that fantasy series? That's what I think.
Nice.
I was born to write that series. Maybe it'll suck. Maybe no. I mean, I'm not really counting on it being published. And I'll probably just self-publish it because I don't really care if someone publishes. I just want to do it.
Yeah.
I just want to do it because I'm passionate about it.
No, I think it's so. I think the idea definitely has legs. I'm looking forward to seeing you take it to that level and actually create this, because, like I said, you have one guaranteed reader. So
that's cool. Well, I'll say this: I write like I design. I'm pretty intricate. I'm a pretty, if you can say, ornate writer. I write anyway. but like my designs, there's always a set structure and composition that's easily definable, even though there's a lot of intricate details. Like if you look at standards, it's a very basic composition: 2 circles and a horizontal bar in the middle of the back. If you look at successor, I'll describe some of it. This is also the back of the cards. It has an hourglass ambergram that's an S for successor, and it's an hourglass because it's the idea of turning the tide of succession. Then it also has on the 2 tops of it banners that form an X, as if like you're dying or whatever. So it's ridiculously ornate, inspired by architecture and also tunes and stuff. But the main composition that's in it is very structured, and I said that's probably how I write. There's a simple structure, simple narrative, very intricate details and stuff.
Nice.
So when you first came out of school too, actually rolling back to that question I had about the whole idea of going to boutique, what was like the first firm you worked for? Like what were you designing out of school?
Yeah, so I was really grateful because I graduated in 2008, right when the market crashed. And I was actually originally going to New York to an agency there that I had interned with, but they unfortunately shuttered during the crash, which I was really sad about because they do phenomenal work. But it ended up being, if you want to say like a destiny kind of a thing, like it ended up being exactly what I needed, because if that happened, I would not have probably gone into lettering. I probably would not have found out my ability to type and with illustration had it not been for that pivotal event in my life. I also met my wife then, which was really important too. But I went to work for Hint Creative in Salt Lake City, and I worked with Christian Hansen, who's a phenomenal mentor. I really enjoyed my time there, and he really taught me. I'd always been very good with details, but he taught me how to be methodical, how to be strategic, and how to analyze systems and create systems. And he really taught me how to think and how to brand. And he was really great at that. And I'm really grateful for the mentorship I had there. And I learned so much of how to run a business. I learned so much about how to communicate with clients, how to pitch ideas, just how to be a designer, really. And it facilitated and helped me be more methodical in a lot of the intricate work that I do. And this is no hit at Hint at all, but I just personally didn't enjoy a lot of the work I was doing there. And that's, that we just had different visions of what we wanted to accomplish too. And so I started doing stuff on the side and started getting opportunities to work on some of these other brands. And I initially played with the idea of becoming a partner there and bringing on those brands to Hint, but it just wasn't a good fit. And I ended up getting and I mean, it was a big leap of faith. I mean, we were expecting our 3rd child when I left, but it just felt like the right thing to do. And I've never looked back. I think it was 100% the right choice to make.
Yeah, sounds it. That's for sure.
No, that's definitely, and I think, that touches on a great point, is a lot of times you do have to make that leap of faith into something that you're going to enjoy more. And granted, not everything succeeds, but like, I think a lot of people go through life not willing to take that jump and then look back always saying, oh, I wish I could have done this. Like, instead, take the opportunity to jump, even if you don't necessarily feel like you have the perfect safety net.
Yeah. And actually, my book talks a little bit about this, the gold standard, because again, building confidence. One thing that I found that really helps in going into the twilight of uncertainty, right? And taking a risk, like me going solo. It happened right before I was named a young gun for the ADC, and I didn't know I was going to win that. That ended up being, I think, a really good visibility for me is getting that, and for me too, it helped build my confidence because it was kind of validation. It's like, hey, maybe I am pretty good at what I'm doing. It was nice to get and at the end of the day, I think I still would have been successful had I not won that. It was just a nice kind of gold feather, or a nice maybe marker along the journey to suggest that I was on the right path. Not that it defined my path, but it helped point me in the right direction. Maybe that's a way of looking at it. But it's important when you take risks to also do things consistently that you are good at or that you can be successful at. For example, I really enjoy weightlifting. I enjoy running. I know every day I can do a workout, I can be successful in that. Also, when you exercise, it creates endorphins. It actually releases serotonin. There are lots of benefits from exercise that promote confidence and trust. And so I think that if you can do things so you should always balance experimenting and going into the unknown with things that you are competent at. Because if you're always doing things that are new and you're incompetent at, you're going to feel incompetent. You're going to feel like you can't do or accomplish anything. And so it's important to have some things you can do consistently that promote. And also, I think it's important too, like where people find value and purpose now. We talked about this earlier. I think too many people are because of a lack and a crisis of purpose and responsibility, just in general in life, people are looking to the wrong things to fill that hole in them. Some people turn to politics, which I think is a vacant journey or full stop when you reach the end of that. I don't think that's going to fulfill a higher purpose in life. You need to find, it's like man's search for meaning, or if you're trying to find, if you have a reason for something, if you have a purpose, you can endure any hardship or any failure that you have if you know what you're aiming for. Now, it doesn't mean that maybe like you're trying something and you're just not on the right path. It's like for example, Paulo Coelho's Brazilian, his The Alchemist, where
great book.
Once you find your destiny, the universe combines with you to facilitate realizing that vision that you have. But you have to find your destiny first, and when you do, everything like everything turns to gold, right? It's like the Midas touch. When you find the thing that's right, the stars align and it works out. I mean, I feel like that really worked with me. But maybe someone's trying out something new and it's just not working out. Maybe it's and we talked. I talked about someone who would come to me for advice in design, and they were like retro seeding. They kept getting worse, and so I'm like, you know what? You have amazing work ethic. You just need to find the field that you're good in. It doesn't mean that you're worthless because you're not good at design. You just haven't found the thing that you're excellent at.
Yeah.
And so you need to discover that. And sometimes it's like, I've had many failures along the way. I wasn't like, my first few lettering projects sucked. Like, what I still consider to be my best lettering piece is probably my Terra poster in the 7 Day series. I think that's like my pinnacle of typography achievement for a lot of reasons. But that one, like the first 60 hours I spent on it, sucked. And I went to a friend of mine who I consult with. He's like, yeah, this sucks. You got to start over. So I'm like, oh crap, 60 hours, like 70 hours. And then finally I was able to hit a verve and I figured out how to do it. And then it ended up being one I think my greatest pieces that I've ever done typographically. It was also in a period of my life where I was maybe just hungry and trying to prove something to myself. And I had a little bit more. I woke up at like 4 a.m. for 3 months to work on that piece before my job. Wow. That was a very exhausting period of my life. I don't care. And also I slept more consistently with only 2 kids then. I have 5 now, and I never sleep all the way through the night anymore. Like it's been months since I've slept all the way through the night. And so I'm just in a different phase of life, where I can't wake up at 4 a.m. and work on stuff. I have to get enough sleep to be available for my family or my kids, or to be competent at paying the bills for my day job, which I like my job. So that's good. So, but people, I'm all about calculated risks, taking risks, not taking crazy risks, but being strategic and trying new things, and people, not being satisfied, but also trying to, like for me, I find value in realizing my full potential and seeing what I am capable of, whatever that may be. If this fantasy series I work on sucks, at least I'll know because I tried. I don't ever want to die. Like I didn't try. I don't know if it would have been good or not. I have to try. I have to walk down that road and see if it's worth pursuing.
But even sometimes the first time you tried, you might, it's just like decorating. It's like designing or decorating. You can decorate a cake, whatever. But like you could try something the first time and learn so much from that first time of trying that you just crush it the second time, and then you learn from that and understand what needs to be done.
One thing I should show this in my book, The Confidence, the Gold Standard. Excuse me, I'm hesitant to show it because I hate showing work of mine that sucks, because I don't like looking at stuff that sucks, especially if I'm the one who created it. If I birthed it, I want to look at this horrible creation. Get that behind me. I moved past that. But it's good to see, like if I showed you the first iterations of the Citizens deck, or if I showed you the first iterations of standards, like if I showed you like some of the first comps and how it failed and I had to start over, or had to try something new, I think everybody would be like, because I didn't know how to design a card deck when I did Citizens. It was my first deck. I'd never done it before.
Oh, dude, show us. We would love to see that.
I'd have to dig up the files and see what the first things were, but
that'd be cool. You should post it online just to give us a little.
I hate Instagram, man. Like I hate. I have this.
You can send it to us and we'll post it.
I don't know. I have to. I'm wondering what what's happening in the green with me. Problem with Citizens, I don't know what the legalities would be of posting components of the artwork because it has David Copperfield's name. So I don't know if I could actually.
Oh right, yeah, that makes sense.
Because the type.
You can take his name off.
Sorry.
You can take his name off.
That's part of what makes it cool, though, is the type was different, how the type looked, how it interacted. Because I mean, how I'm very type centric in how I work, because I think type is one of my strengths, and so I always lean on my strength. I always lean on my strengths when I go into something I've never done before or into a new project, because that's like I talked before. It's good if you embrace uncertainty with some of your strengths, it's easier to confront it. And so I always approach something typographically first. That's my thing. And so I always build stuff usually around an architecture around typography. And so
nice.
Now sometimes it's the opposite. I'll build an architecture and then I'll fit the typography into it. And Successors was that way. Standards was probably a hybrid of that. Probably a hybrid where I think I built the composition and I fit the type to it. It depends on what I'm working on. It really just depends.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like to hear what people start on first. You know, some people start on the ace of spades, some people start on a back design, some people start on the tuck. So it's kind of cool to hear.
For me, it's the tuck, and then the tuck and form, because I like to create. Sometimes I'll even start on a monogram. A lot of times with brands, I used to start primarily on a monogram because it would give me a hint of what the style would be. I could interpret what the line quality, what the patterns, what the complementary typeface would be from that. I don't do that all the time, but I still do that sometimes. With Successor, I actually did start. It originally was going to be an ambergram. I still have the ambergram. It's pretty cool. And it was Successors, and then we changed it to the Successor instead of Successors. And Successors mirrors really well. But ambergrams are notoriously kind of hard to read, and Omar was worried that it would not have high enough legibility. And so we might include it on one of the secondary packaging components because it's still pretty cool. But we'll see.
Yeah, they're just hard to read.
Hard. It's like the ones I think in Angels and Demons are actually highly legible. If you've read Angels and Demons, Elementals, those
Dan Brown
are pretty legible, surprisingly. But again, maybe it's more because you read it in the context of the book, and so you know what.
Right.
For me, I thought they were highly legible, but also I specialize in type, and so I'm able to discern certain letter forms easier than others.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's really. I mean, we've seen some great ambigrams. We've seen some that are just tough, but it really is kind of a hit or miss thing. And I think, for people who push forward with it when they're not great, it really can distract from everything else about a design.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and we talked about this earlier. So having 5 kids, I know you have people here, so we really appreciate you coming on tonight. What I do want to say is if there's anyone out there who has any last minute questions they want to get in for Kevin, if nothing else, I think we may need to do a second episode with Kevin because there's so much more I want to pick his brain about. And
right.
If you want another 15 minutes, I can do 15 more minutes.
We can.
I gotta get my kids down to bed tonight, so I don't need my wife to do that by herself. That's
I think with 5, that becomes a 2-person thing minimum. I'm surprised you don't have a third person come over to help you out with 5.
That'd be great. Like, and my older kids, they go to bed a little easier, but my younger ones are the ones that are still hard to get to go to bed. So
they're gonna miss out on something.
You roll the dice, and it's either a 6 or a 1. 6, they go to bed. 1, they don't. It's usually a 1. So yeah.
And so I think
Kevin, you just gotta have a lot of Benadryl in the house.
When I was a kid, my parents used to give me Dimetap, which it was pretty tasty.
Nice.
You ever had Dimetap? It tasted good, and it kind of made you drowsy.
Yeah, the grape.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's totally it. The grape. I love that. And so my parents like, hey,
you and me both. Man.
I love that.
Did you ever have penicillin? The pink penicillin?
No, I never tried that one.
Oh man, pink penicillin tastes like bubblegum. It was so good. I used to love getting sick just so I can have some penicillin.
You're not talking about the. Oh, I'm thinking Pepto-Bismol, which is.
No, that's gross. No, the penicillin, the pink penicillin is like the bomb.
When you had like a sinus infection or a cold or something.
Yeah, it was so good.
So, and I guess there's been a lot of discussion to bring it back to maybe a last minute question here that I kind of want to steer back to your brand. And I think this is kind of something I'm interested in. I know there was a lot of discussion tonight around the idea of your book potentially being your magnum opus and something you want to work on. And also a lot of just kind of side hobbies that you seem to enjoy as a potential main focus in the future. Where does that all kind of tie in with where you see your studio going in the future? Do you see your studio eventually becoming something where you bring on other people to kind of help build the brand? Or is it something where you even see it becoming something that becomes more of a side job in contrast to one of these other main projects?
Funny, if you would have asked me that question a year or 2 years ago, I would have said absolutely not. I would never bring on anybody else. But I've actually changed my position on that a lot in the last year, primarily because, for example, you're familiar with the author Brandon Sanderson. He has a huge team that writes his books for him. Now, he writes some parts of it. He obviously oversees it. It's his story. It's his characters. He maps out all of the story arcs and stuff, and then he has ghostwriters who write it for him. But he said the reason he does is because if he did not, he would never be able to write all of the ideas that he has.
Yeah,
right.
I'm not saying that I'm going to like ghostwrite my fantasy series. I would consider that if it actually would get it produced. I would consider that if it got it out and I couldn't do it on my own. And I don't know if I can do it on my own.
yeah,
And maybe not until I'm older, until my kids are old. I don't know. But I want to see it through. But there's part of me where I hate not doing something on my own, like creatively. And I think there's part of it's a trust issue I may have. I probably need to look into that. Maybe take some therapy.
Let it go, Kevin. Let it go.
I have a hard time because I have a hard time trusting someone, or I guess maybe believing that someone can execute something at the same level or better than I can. So I'm like, no, I'll just do it. Like, no, I'll do it faster and better. Let me do it. Get out of here. Let me do that. But I think in order to achieve all my goals, I may have to adjust that model moving forward. And I've talked to Eric, my business partner, about that, and we're definitely looking into. But part of the challenge too is you have to have enough work to be able to do that, and it's very hard to forecast enough work that would warrant bringing on somebody that maybe initially would just be somebody who I'd bring on occasionally. But it's very hard to find someone who's a good fit in that, who's a freelancer, who has enough flexibility, who can operate like that.
yeah.
It's tricky, but I am open to that. It's funny because I said I don't play well with other designers. Historically, I'll say this. I know because I'm at Hink Creative. I was an art director there. I mean, I know very well how to work with other designers. Well, I just don't enjoy it, or I haven't enjoyed it very much historically. Maybe I'm more willing now to try that than I have before, if it enables me to realize all the visions that I have. Because again, my fantasy series that's my big dream since I was young. When I had the idea when I was 15.
Yeah.
That everything I've done since then has been to open up doors to achieve that goal. And I'm still not, I've obviously worked a lot on it in the last 20 years, a lot. I mean, it's developed substantially. I have a lot of it figured out, but I just need the time to write it. And it's very hard to find the time to do that.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of time.
And when I'm exhausted from being a parent too. I mean, I've got my kids I got to look after. That they have their needs, I have to provide for them, and that takes all my energy and my focus right now. So.
Yeah.
So sure. Yes, I would. I'm open to whatever possibilities enable that road to appear. So yes.
So remember we were talking. Oh, sorry. I was going
to pull up the Jackson thing because Jackson.
So before you pull it up, I'll say it and then you could show it. But remember, in our pre-show we were chatting about Jackson from King's Wild, and he's the one that's been in the chat that really wants to work with you, and he's the one who's doing the Mistborn deck. And
and is he actually working with Brandon Sanderson's team on that?
Yeah, and he just said that you could design the tuck for it.
Oh, really? Hey, that would be I would be very interested in. I love Mistborn. I love Mistborn. I would love to do a Stormlight archive.
If you Jackson's email so you two can chat.
Yeah, I'd be open to discussing that, man.
Cool. Well, dude, Deckin Around, man, making things happen for people.
hey.
I mean,
hey, we didn't even get into the good stuff. We didn't even get into we didn't get into politics. We didn't get into
next time.
We didn't get into political correctness. We didn't get into all the good stuff we were talking about earlier, guys.
Yeah, dude, we'll get into it.
We had a great conversation. Yeah, there's definitely have to be a part 2 to this because I think who knows, part 2, maybe even a part 3, depending on how much time we can take from you. Because again, I think this is one of the great things about a show like this is we can go on random topics everywhere, and it gives us an opportunity to really get to know, someone like you who plays what I would consider a pretty significant part in the playing card community. I firmly believe that most people who come into the playing card community come in either through Art of Play or Theory 11, especially in this day and age, especially with Theory 11 being in Target, which in my mind means that most collectors start their collection and likely have one of your decks in their first probably 50 decks.
That's pretty cool. It's funny because I'm not on the know when it comes to like for example, I'm not I collect some card decks. Ones for example, the ones that I really love, card decks. I love the Hudson deck.
Yeah.
What's his name? don't know why I'm blanking on him because we've talked quite a bit. He's criminally underfollowed on Instagram. Phenomenal designer. Shoot, what is? How am I going to blank? Is it David? What's his name?
Anybody know who designed Hudson?
Oh, Dan Greta.
That's it, Dan Greta. Yeah, Dan, super nice guy too. But like, I honestly believe he is one of the most criminally underfollowed designer on Instagram. He's a phenomenal designer, phenomenal illustrator, and people should follow him. Dan Greta, phenomenal talent, super nice guy. I don't know why I want to blank on him, especially just probably because of what we've been going over. But I love the Hudson deck.
Yeah,
beautiful tuck case. What other decks do I really like? Chad Michaels, great designer.
Amazing.
Great guy too. Good friend.
Here's one. I would love to see you guys collab. That would be dope.
I know. The only thing with Chad Michaels is we actually overlap a bit stylistically, so I don't know what it would be like if we collaborated.
It'd be dope. You guys.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. I love Chad Michael, though. He does great work. He has a pretty good following, though, so he doesn't need like a shout out quite like Dan does. But I feel like Dan Greta again, he's criminally underfollowed, does excellent work.
Yeah.
See, what other decks are there out there? So Chad's decks are always really nice. Let's see. I mean, the Jake Bond.
Chad's got he's got the private labels, man.
He primarily does alcohol labels.
Yeah, the private labels for wine. That's where it's at.
I think the James Bond deck is pretty cool. I like the again, the Hudson deck is pretty rad. Yeah. Oh, I like the High Victorian deck by Joe White. Joe White's another great designer. Peer. I like he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I'd say those are two of probably my favorite decks. Is the High Victorian tuck case and the Hudson. I think those are really fantastic.
I love that Hudson. That teal blue Hudson is one of the best tucks.
Yes, that teal blue. Actually, that was
so good.
Yeah, that's a beautiful color combination.
Yeah,
I like JP Fletcher's decks. I like the Union deck. Very cool idea. Like very, very cool idea for a deck.
Art Deco style decks.
Let's see what else we got here. I don't even know why it's like funny because it's like people, everybody has their own favorite decks. I have my own decks that I'm like, oh, like that inspired me. Like, oh, I want to create a deck. And it's like, why didn't I do that? Why is that so awesome? Why couldn't I have designed that? Like,
yeah, I love the Monarch, man. I'm a huge fan of Monarch.
Be that cool? Why couldn't I have done something that cool? Like,
you've designed your own cool decks, dude.
Without a doubt.
Who designed the Monarch?
I don't know. I don't know who did Monarchs.
Do I have one near me?
I want to say, was it a designer in Africa? There's a designer in Africa who's in a couple decks for Jonathan.
God, that Monarchs. I love that Monarchs deck. That's one of my favorites for sure.
Their all-time. Oh, I'm thinking of the Artisans deck. I think the Artisan deck was done by that designer. Oh yeah, South Africa, Cape Town. Because I live in South Africa.
Yeah.
That's why I always was interested. It's like, oh hey, a South African doing some awesome stuff. Cool.
Curtis Jenkins did Monarchs.
Neighborhood Studio.
Africa. Anyway. Yeah.
Curtis Jenkins did Monarchs.
Yeah.
Curtis Jenkins. Okay, that's cool.
He's from Neighborhood Studios.
Oh yeah. Neighborhood Studios does some. I think they're in South Africa too. Actually, aren't they? Neighborhood Studio. Am I thinking of a different one? Anyway, they do really good work. Neighborhood Studio. They do some really nice work. Great illustration.
That too, and I can't even remember what it was now. Drifters. Maybe?
It was recently. Yeah. Did he do the Drifters?
I don't know. I like the Drifters deck. That's a cool deck.
Yeah, I think it was either Drifters because I don't think it was the Antler deck. I think it was Drifters.
No, Antler was done by
Neighborhood. He did the Drifters.
By I know his Twitter handle is Ginger. Tom Lane. I think Tom Lane did the Antlers deck.
Nice.
Another very good designer, Tom Lane.
Yeah.
For anyone watching this, I'm going to be linking to all of these designers we're talking about in their Instagrams below, so you can check their work out because it really is all beautifully done stuff. And I think one of the cool things about it too is I think people who maybe necessarily wouldn't stumble across artists really have an opportunity because of playing cards to find artwork that they really appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's anyway, like it's funny because like I don't really consider myself even like part of the design community in some ways. Like I'm very much alone, like, cause I'm very introverted. I kind of keep to myself. Like, I mean, anytime I'm on Twitter, like I got tiki torched on Twitter recently because I had some semi-conservative views that got me like people like attack mob me, and I'm just
You got
like,
tiki. What'd you call it? Tiki what?
I got tiki torched like on Twitter.
Tiki torch.
Yeah, like just people like it's just like many of my peers have views and things that I don't necessarily agree with, but it doesn't mean I disrespect them or I don't value them or view them as lesser or stupid because they don't see things the way I do or maybe have the values that I have. Like that doesn't mean that we can't be friends or we can't disagree. Like I just think it's so weird when people attack you for having a different opinion. Like that's just really weird to me. Like, I don't see how that's, number one, American, number two, a model of free speech and diversity to attack someone for sharing an idea that you don't think that you find is lesser or inferior in intelligence or something. Two things can be true. People can be extremely intelligent and have very different opinions on something, and that's fine. Now I may think like you may even think I'm wrong. I may even think that you're wrong, but it doesn't mean that we can't have a conversation about it and have a mutually respectful discourse on why we think the way we do. I'm more interested in knowing why someone thinks something necessarily that I am in a specific view that they have sometimes, because people are complex. I think people are much more dimensional than for example, the common idea right now of intersectionality, where you're first defined by your race or your skin color. I think that's so backwards. People are defined by their character and by their ideas, not by their physical attributes. I just think that's such a weird way of looking at things.
Yeah,
it's such a way to view humanity. We're just so much more complex and diverse than that. I think it's insulting to paint people like that, and I don't think it's good for society. And I wish that.
No, I mean, of course not. And dude, we literally, and we've talked about this earlier. We literally could talk about this for 75 episodes straight. Like we could literally have 48 hours of this talking straight,
Which if you haven't seen it on that topic, though, what I would say is check out Social Dilemma, because they talk a little bit about the idea of, the social polarization that's happened because of social media, and how not only do people have drastically far left or far right opinions now, but because of that polarization, they also have less willingness to hear the other side. And so, like you said, it touches on that whole aspect of people not being willing to accept that other opinions are viable and even hear those other opinions from other people.
Well, that people can have different opinions, and it doesn't change who I am, and it doesn't change who they are. Nor does it mean that we can't coexist together. Like, I think that there is a widening chasm between those two polarities, which is unfortunate. Yeah. But most people in America are centrists. They're either left-leaning or right-leaning, but I really believe most people in America are centrists. Somewhere in the middle. Yeah. But unfortunately, the loudest voices are extreme, and I think that's unfortunate. I think we have so much more in common than we have uncommon, and I think it'd be good.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people. A lot of people are just misinformed. They're watching one specific thing, not looking into things. A lot of people go just by hearsay. Maybe your aunt says something and you believe it, and that's what you believe now. And I think a lot of people's opinions and ways of reasoning are based off of that, when they're just, unintelligent in whatever that topic is, and I think, and we talked about it earlier. I think, you're a different religion than me. I'm a different religion than Tyler, and we have great conversation. We talked, I'm not conservative, but I love Blair White, who's a conservative trans woman, and you also like Blair White, so I think what it comes down to, and I also have my opinions, where if someone is ultimately a bad person and they have bad beliefs, meaning they spray a lot of hate and hurt people, and those are the people that I speak out against, and voice my opinion against. But for the most part, if someone wants to follow a certain religion, if they want to eat certain foods, whatever it may be, I could care less. That has nothing to do with me, right? It's as long as we're just good people. And I think that's what everybody's naturally trying to be, right? Is just good people.
I hope so. I think it's a difficult thing to define, is what makes someone good, and I think it's like what is good. I think those are deep, actually really deep philosophical questions. Is what is
For
good?
sure.
How do we? Because you can't scientifically demonstrate what is good. Now, maybe in some ways you could, in terms of well-being, and you could analyze brain scans and see what provides a mental stability and brainwave functions or whatever. I mean, but like it's difficult. Like, for example, like there are people like for example Dan Pacman, is it Dan Pacman? Anyway, Pacman on the he has a YouTube channel on the left. I disagree with a lot of the things the guy says, but I really like and respect the guy because he seems like a decent human being. As opposed to, what's the guy from the Young Turks? He's a really big voice, but he's just obnoxious, and I find him to be repugnant because I can't stand listening to him because he's so dismissive of opposition. Like he like just insults and calls them horrible things. I'm like, I just don't see how that's constructive to treat other human beings like that. Like you say, like I do think some people are misinformed. I also believe that it's extremely hard to be informed today because this is the one thing that Trump hits on that he takes to his advantage. But he has one point that's somewhat true in it, is that the media, in many ways, has lost the trust of the people. They've lost the confidence of the people because they have promoted and done things that are to promote a specific agenda of theirs. And I think that's really unethical, and it's unfortunate. Now, it doesn't mean that all news is fake news. That's not true at all. And Trump has played on that immensely.
Yeah.
But it also, I can understand why people find it very vexing and tiring to find out what really is going on, because it's very hard to. You have to really read and listen to a lot of things to get any idea. I listen to stuff every day. I try to be like, because I honestly view myself as historically illiterate. Like I listen to stuff on history every day because number one, I'm really fascinated by history. Two, is I just feel like I don't know enough. And so I'm always listening to podcasts on even philosophy, on human, on anything. Like I'm trying to find out more to cure my illiteracy, or my historical ignorance or whatever. But I think it's very some people are misinformed. I to myself. I mean, maybe we're all to a certain degree misinformed.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think where we can find commonality is in, can we just serve each other, help each other? Maybe we don't have necessarily the same vision on how, or maybe what's the best end state, but it doesn't mean we can't help each other. Doesn't mean we can't respect each other, even though we disagree with each other. It doesn't mean, if you need food and you don't have food, I can't provide food for you. If you need your yard raked, I can go help you rake your yard or whatever, if you're, especially the elderly, to help people who can't help themselves. I mean, that, I think, in essence, is the definition of Christianity, is to serve and help those who cannot help themselves. We can't maybe agree on all the things, but can we not do that? Can we not do good for people and not?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think we've talked about it. We definitely agree on that, and I think what it comes down to is just doing that, right, and doing more of that, and hopefully things move in that direction. We see it all the time when a catastrophe happens. There's no question.
I don't think COVID actually, the funny thing is, like, for example, 9/11, I think 9/11 for a month or two, there was this, and there was this, at least, it felt like people came together for a little bit, although I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like a catastrophe like that, or a hurricane, or a flood, or something, that's when people pull together. I
don't think COVID's done that, unfortunately, though. I don't think it's brought.
I agree.
I agree. It's really unfortunate because it's really sad to me, because in a state like this, and again, you don't have to agree with people's positions on certain, because again, like, I'm always skeptic of a government that wants to liberate us by taking away wants to save us by taking away our liberties. I'm always skeptic because historically there's a bad precedence for that. And so I sympathize with people who are skeptical about certain things the government does in order to save us. Like now I don't necessarily agree with all the things people do to combat that, but it's like, for example, the gulags. People, Stalin, what did he do to them? He's like, hey, they have all the land, they have all the wealthy. You deserve to have that. Let's take it from them. We need to take it and give it back to the people. That's a bit of a different position, but I'm always skeptical of people saying they're going to fix our problems by eating the rich, or by taking, right. It's good to steal from one class of people but not another class, because stealing can discriminate, because as long as it's someone who has an excess and you get to determine what is an excess, you can do it. And I just think that
right.
that justifiable reasoning is problematic. And so anyway, I would like for people to come together despite our differences. It's fine. I mean, America's been it's 200 years of people who didn't agree on everything except this idea of sacrificing for the greater good for the people, for the country. And I'm not saying we have to be like Russian, Stalin saying we got to sacrifice these people for the greater good. Let's put them all in gulags, or Mao China, the Great Famine. We don't have to go to that extent. But I'm saying, right. I do think that we talked about like the idea of utopia. There has never been a utopia, but one thing's for sure: utopia will never ever be established by top down. It will always be bottom up, individual virtue and responsibility. It's the only way to achieve it.
No, absolutely.
And we're gonna see it even in our community, even in the playing card community. We see greed. We see all these things that are flooded from outside, right? And they're just whatever it is, toxicity in people, hatred in people, jealousy in people. It's all these things, whether it's mental health, whether it's things we grew up on, how we grew up. All this stuff affects how we treat other people, So I think there's a lot of work to be done personally. Each person needs to work on themselves and just take responsibility and ownership for your shit. And
totally agree.
And I think that's where it starts. And it's okay to say I fucked up. It's okay to say I'm sorry. Tyler and I this happens to us all the time.
Dude, I'll be like grouchy and I'll go off on Steve about something. Like 20 minutes later, I'll text him and be like, "Yeah, sorry, man. Like I don't know what's up with me today." Like, I line it. Like, I think even on that small level, and I think you're 100% right. It starts at the bottom, bottom up, because at that small level, if we as people can't have those vulnerable moments with other human beings, we're never going to be able to accept ourselves. We're never going to be able to accept the imperfection of people. And what makes us all beautiful is that, imperfection. And then how do we then come together, be vulnerable together, and build to hopefully make something more beneficial for everyone?
Yeah. I mean, that's so true. I mean, you probably see it at your, you have 5 kids, Kevin. How many times will a kid come up to you and say something? Daddy, your breath smells. Or Daddy, you have a booger. And
something else. Like my wife comes up to me and she'll like look at my face. She's like, "You got these like wrinkles by the side of your mouth." And I'm like,
but it's like, if we could communicate or react like we're hearing stuff from children, our life would be much better dealing with adults. Like we don't look at kids and be like, "Well, your breath or F you" to a 6-year-old. Like when a 6-year-old says you have bad breath, it still makes you feel bad. You still hurt your ego, but you don't react the same you would if your girlfriend or your new boyfriend or something like that is like, "Your breath smells." You're like, "Well, your breath smells too." Or we always feel like we need to just look okay.
You could just in a tactful way hand you a breath mint. Like, "Hey, I'd recommend you use this." So that's a tactful way to be like, maybe you should brush your teeth or whatever. Here's a mint.
Or just be okay with hearing your breath smells. Be like, okay.
Or because society in general, we're almost like an open nerve that people are just like, they touch it slightly and you cringe and you yell at them and you're offended and you're upset. Yeah. And that's not that's just not a good overall place for society to be in. This taking offense so easily and being so charged, and just someone expresses a different view. It's like, "Oh, that means you're dirt. I'm unfollowing you because you're horrible." It's like, I mean, if you unfollow them, how are you going to possibly persuade them to your inclinations? Like, how are you going to change their mind if you just unfollow them and you don't want to talk with them? How can you change their mind if you won't engage them? If you don't recognize our common humanity? How can that change the future? I don't see how there's a good end to that road. Like, I just don't see what the point of that is.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely different elements, that work and don't work within humanity, and I think the elements that work, a lot of people, myself included, at times, we forget. We just forget about those elements, and it's kind of like I know that I don't know, right? And it's not knowing what I do know. And I think what it just comes down to is, like you said, is just fucking be nice to people. Just try to be nice. That's all.
Yeah. Now, I will say this, though, that on that path to be nice to people, there's a good, I guess you could say, a proverb is you chastise people that you love. And what I mean by that is if you really care about somebody, you don't just let them do and live their life however they want. You're like, you know what, I see you're doing something that maybe is going to be destructive to you. Or you know what, I think you're in a way, I love you, but I just don't think that's right. I think you need to change. The people who love each other are nice, but they also want the best and try to promote the best in each other. And sometimes that's through chastisement, sometimes that's through compliments. Sometimes it's through being, hey, you need to change your path. You know, maybe you're not making the best choices in life. Maybe you need to get up off your couch and not play video games all day, or I don't know, whatever, you know. But I think that the one thing is for sure is that we are humans. We all are prone to err and make mistakes, and we all need some kind of forgiveness. And if we are bound or defined by mistakes of the past, and there's no reconciliation for anybody, if they've expressed a view in the past, or they've done something in the past that they're tarnished forever, there has to be some road to reconciliation, or to persuade someone to change their position, to get better, to seek redemption, to seek, I don't know, I mean, and to forgive each other, and to ask for forgiveness when we need it, because we all stumble upon that road sometimes and need somebody to pick us up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Tyler said it. It's all through vulnerability. We all got to be vulnerable. If we're vulnerable with each other, we'll share with each other, we'll open up with each other, and we'll love each other. And that's what it all comes down to.
Have you read Brene Brown's Rising Strong, curiously? I
haven't read any of her stuff, but I mean, I know a lot of her work.
Great book. It talks about vulnerability and the courage it takes to be vulnerable. And again, it doesn't mean you have to like air all your dirty laundry. I think some people take that a little too literally in that sense, that, hey, I'm going to tell everybody every, I think, and you know what, if that helps people deal with their problems, I'm fine with, like, if that helps you cope by being vulnerable and opening up about that, that's fine. I personally like to deal with my struggles more personally, and on a personal note, and that's fine. That works for me, and maybe that doesn't work for everybody. That's fine. But I do think that to be vulnerable is to be courageous, but it also does require patience and forgiving, and maybe people to identify that if you look in the mirror and you notice the cracks or maybe the motes in your own eye, you might be a little less likely to cast or recognize the mote in someone else's eye. You know, the good proverb, take it out, first cast the mote out of your own eye, then you can see clearly enough to help somebody else with theirs. I think that's a pretty wise word, is that we all have views sometimes, and sometimes
no, that's so true. You know, you want to hear a funny story about Brene Brown?
Yeah.
So I started a project back in 2010. It's all about insecurities, and it's a photography project. And in 2014, it went viral. And that's around, I think when did Brene's TEDx talk come out? 2013, 2012?
I don't know.
It was. What's her Tyler's on it? I can tell he's got his laser eyes on. But her original TED talk, and then she came out with her first book right after that. So my project went viral in 2014. I reached out to Brene's management agent, and and I asked her. I was like, I would love for you to be in my project because it's all about vulnerability. You know, this is right up her alley, you know, and her management got back to me and they're like, she's actually busy until 2017.
Jeez. Wow.
And I'm like, way to be vulnerable, Brene. Like, dude, I don't care how busy you are. You can't take 45 minutes in the next 3 years to talk about vulnerability with me. So I find that funny whenever anybody brings up Brene Brown and vulnerability.
It is ironic. I would only recommend maybe considering one thing is you don't know all the things that was going on in her life at the time.
Oh, of course.
Right. It is ironic, right? But we don't. I mean, I'm pretty sure she's a mom. I mean, she's obviously a wife. She has her own family. And who knows what was going. I mean, she probably honestly had so many requests to do certain things too. She probably just couldn't manage it all.
No, for sure. Yeah.
I don't. It is ironic.
I don't hate her for it. I'm just saying I think it's funny because it's like, I mean, I know a lot of busy people. You know, I've worked with musicians who don't stop. You know, and for someone, nobody has a 3-year calendar mapped out. Like, I don't care how busy you are. You know, and
3 years. Like, yeah, get back to me. I need to tell
you know what?
It's
Whatever. You're not that huge, Brene. Like, you're a big deal, but you're not that big of a deal. Like, come on. But I just thought it was funny. I'm like, way to be wrong.
Yeah, I'll get back to you in 3 years. Like, I need to have so many clients lined up that, like, I'll get back to you in 3 years on that project.
Yeah, right.
That's a crazy one. You know, that's her original TED Talk came out in December 2010. So a booking till 2017. That's a 7-year calendar there. That's something.
No, but I reached out once when my project went viral. So it was 2014.
Yeah, still time, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, whatever. Anyway, it was funny.
Well, guys,
on that note,
we're gonna wrap up here. We really do appreciate everyone coming out tonight. Obviously we had a lot of people coming in the chat, have some good questions, good conversation there. Kevin, we really appreciate you coming on as well, especially being as busy as you are. We really have appreciated and enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, I think we would love to have you on again in the future. So hopefully we can make that work when you have some time, because I think there's a lot more to find out about you and some of these discussions and some of these topics. I think we really just scratched the surface tonight. But we want to thank everyone who came out. Again, anyone who's on, stick around for a few minutes. We're going to play our ad reel real quick. Then we're going to announce next week's guest and also talk a little bit about the Saturday 24 hours. So real quick, here's our ad roll.
Hummingbird feathers mimics the shimmer of a hummingbird in motion. Hummingbird feathers mimics the shimmer of a hummingbird in motion. Meticulously created with a specialized printing process using multiple holographic foils. Stunning tuck design and sculpted embossing with master letterpress creation. Featuring limited, standard, and gilded 3-deck sets. Pre-order yours today at marvelousdecks.com.
Marvelousdecks.com. Marvelous.
And so next week we have another designer on the show, which we're really excited about. Someone who's put out some really well-known decks within the community. They actually recently had some really great decks this year. Jokyu Playing Cards is going to be our guest next week. Jokyu is based out of Italy. Their most recent deck, the Onda, was on Kickstarter not too long ago. Absolutely beautiful deck. We're really excited to have them on. And for anyone who isn't aware, make sure to tune in this Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be streaming for 24 hours live with Jackson Robinson's going to be there as our co-host for the entire 24 hours. We're going to be bringing on a slew of guests, giveaways, just a really great time all around. Make sure to tune in. Like I said, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check out the Instagram as well. We will be posting the full schedule with everyone's time, so you can tune in for either the whole 24 hours if you really want to be adventurous, or check out the guests that you're really interested in as well. Again, we appreciate all of you. Kevin, we had an absolute blast tonight, man. Thank you so much.
Heck yeah.
Stick around guys. A minute. After this, we're going to do a quick post show, and then we'll let you free, we promise. Everyone else, enjoy the evening.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.